Friends, we have big breaking news coming out of Ukraine. We got mass protests happening, the largest protests we've seen since the Russian invasion in 2022. So this is a big deal. We got mass protests. This is a militarized dictatorship. So the fact that these protests are happening is either one, startling, or two, they're being tolerated by powerful individuals who control the military, and these things are telegraphing what is about to happen next in Ukraine. This is going to shake things up dramatically. We need to talk about this. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and these are the things that are happening even too fast for the mainstream media to keep up with. All right, we got a mass protest happening in Ukraine. Now, there is a bill that just got pushed through and or is being pushed through, and that is basically they have these anti-corruption agencies, and this bill is basically to start bringing those anti-corruption agencies under the control of the president, which obviously negates a lot of their anti-corruption ability when it's the president and his allies that are doing the corruption. So, people out there we're talking thousands of people with signs and well-ordered. They're not staring down riot police or military units there in Kiev, as well as other cities across Ukraine. This seems to be well-organized and peaceful in the sense that they're not being attacked by the military. I mean, this is a place where you can't say poop without actually having the media, the police and military come down hard on you and either send you to the front line or, heavy consequences to you and your family. This is not a free place, okay? I know everyone's out there like we're protecting democracy and all that kind of stuff like that, but they haven't had elections, okay? They haven't had elections in a while, and there's been a growing consensus that Zelensky is the wrong guy. And we know that part of the demand for peace, the peace negotiations, Russia has been demanding that there be elections before the peace treaty gets signed. So basically, stages or steps in there. But basically, Putin is basically saying Zelensky's got to go. Like, there can be no peace with Zelensky in control. So the question here is, what exactly is going on here? This is being allowed to happen. So either Zelensky is losing control and powerful forces are allowing this to happen in spite of Zelensky's discomfort with this type of protest, or this is basically just a signal, an excuse to kind of justify what happens next, which is a soft coup. Now, when most of the government is kind of going along with the coup, it's a soft coup. It's not going to be a dramatic coup. It's going to be Zelensky's out, and they may even give him an honorary position or something like that. They don't even necessarily have to make him off to the side and exile him or throw him in jail. They don't have to do that. This can be a soft coup where he's pushed to the side. If they don't feel like he's a threat, if the powers that be are unified in their decision that, we need a new head, since they can't have an open election where citizens vote, basically you get your power brokers it looks like they're talking behind the scenes and they're all like, okay, let's go a different direction. And they're going to replace Zelensky with somebody else. And they don't feel threatened by Zelensky because he's in the end, he's an actor, right? He's an actor, and most of the Western countries do not support Zelensky. They support Ukraine. So in this war, the big name that's being floated right now is Valery Zaluzhny. Valery Zaluzhny was the commander of the Ukrainian forces for the first 2 years of the war. So he's a big name. He's not like some small random guy. He's a powerful, influential, central leader in the last few years, and he was entrusted with the defense of Ukraine. He was like the Joint Chief of Staff, the commander. Yeah, big guy. He is currently the ambassador to the UK. So what has happened just recently kind of isn't his fault. And so they may be trying to switch out things. Also, this kind of really seems to be a link directly to NATO. So the European governments that are actively supporting Ukraine, looks like Valery Zelensky will be kind of like a, I wouldn't say puppet, but a much stronger connection to NATO. Now, word on the street too is that NATO is really pushing hard to get NATO troops on the ground in Ukraine. And this can't really happen unless there is sufficient air defense systems. They need to close the airspace over Ukraine before any NATO troops really start getting involved there. And that seems to be what we're talking about here with President Trump moving forward these Patriot battery deliveries to either countries that are going to transfer them to Ukraine or directly to Ukraine. They need to move these air defense systems in place, get them installed so that they can protect foreign forces that are going to be moving into Ukraine. This seems like it's accelerating, and it seems like one of the prerequisites before President Trump and some of these other people who have been having a growing problem with Zelensky. They want to replace the face of Ukraine with somebody who's a little less just out of control. Zelensky sometimes has he just flat out insulted President Trump to his face and made him look bad. And you know, that's something that his bad relationship with President Trump is negatively impacting Ukraine. So you can understand why some of the forces there are kind of like, we don't really care about Zelensky. He's become a liability to Ukraine now, so we need to get rid of him and move somebody else in. So that's the direction it looks like it's going in. These protests are right now just that, protests, but the fact that they are being, one, tolerated, and the second thing too is we're not seeing, they're not so out of control. They're not crazy. And the other thing that's interesting, when you look at the pictures, you're seeing men. So you're seeing men in the crowd, which, you know, aren't all men being drafted? So how can there be men in the crowd that are not in uniform? So this seems to be accepted at some level, and doesn't seem to have strong pushback from the government just yet. We may see some sort of crackdown or something like that, but didn't appear to happen. Maybe if these protests are ongoing, but they seem mostly to be a peaceful crowd, fairly organized with their signs. And this is in multiple locations across Ukraine, in multiple cities, not just Kiev. And this is all kind of just happens, and everyone just kind of lets it happen, which is surprising in this type of a country, in this type of situation. So we may see this pivot, and it looks like something's changing in Ukraine. And it looks like we may see a pivot towards NATO, a possible pivot towards having NATO troops in the country. President Trump doesn't seem to have a problem with European allies of the United States sending troops into Ukraine. He said that he doesn't think that's wise, and he thinks that could expand the war. But it also seems like as long as American troops' lives aren't in danger, It seems like that is something that President Trump will allow or will not necessarily get, in the way of. Right now, this could make several of these countries direct combatants. Now, what they really want is they want some sort of truce. If they can get some sort of truce with Russia for just even a few days, that will give them the excuse to send in NATO peacekeepers to enforce the truce, which honestly is Russia's worst fear realized. You can have Ukraine become part of NATO, not because they've been inducted into NATO, but because NATO forces just move in. And NATO forces in Ukraine de facto makes Ukraine basically a NATO state. If all the enforcement and the protections of NATO fall on Ukraine, then that's the only part of NATO that really matters, right? I mean, if NATO comes to the aid of Ukraine, that will be a serious thing. That will cause Russia to have a very serious conniption, and they will have a difficult time continuing to make headway. But will NATO troops really turn the corner in the conflict? And what happens if NATO actually counterattacks and actually starts pushing Russians back? What happens when Russians on the front lines are actually being are perishing because of the actions, the direct actions of NATO personnel from Germany or Lithuania or Latvia? What happens then? Is Russia going to retaliate against those countries directly? And are those countries direct combatants so that airstrikes could start hitting factories in those countries? This war is going in the direction of wider escalation, and it seems like NATO and the U.S. allies are like, let's just push it a little further. Let's push it a little further. Russia hasn't done anything yet to stop us, or at least hasn't really done anything. So we're just going to keep going a little further, a little further, a little further. And the next big thing that we've been told could not happen is NATO troops being deployed to Ukraine. And this does seem to be like that is what's happening. We're hearing calls. French President Macron has basically said that if other countries send troops into Ukraine, that France will follow suit. Starmer of the UK has made noises to basically say the same thing, that they would be willing to contribute British troops to occupying Ukraine for some sort of peace deal. And we got other countries like Estonia who are chomping at the bit to get troops in there. Poland saying that they would be willing to deploy troops. And Germany as well. So, I mean, we got a bunch of European countries all kind of looking for who's going to be the first one, who's going to be the one who actually does it, and then they can all follow suit. If they do that, this may not go the way they think it does. They're thinking that highly trained NATO infantry will turn this conflict, but in the way the conflict is set up, where you have almost trench warfare happening with heavy artillery bombardment, can NATO troops really, who are trained primarily for maneuver warfare, not static trench warfare, can they really operate in this type of environment without just getting torn apart? It's a different kind of conflict than what they're used to or what they're hoping to go up against. NATO has been built basically to bully third world countries who don't really have a real military. And say what you will about Russia in the last number of years, but they have been hardening their military. Their military has undergone, their training may not be all that great, but they've been getting combat training for the last number of years. And so we're talking about a military that has gained a lot of experience When's the last time German troops actually were in conflict, or France? In actual large-scale conflict, it's been a long time. Their military doesn't have the institutional memory of that. So even if they do that, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to go the way they hope it will. NATO troops could get massacred, potentially. They could go in there and turn everything around, or they could go in there and it could be a massive liability. And them sending troops into Ukraine would not be the same as if Russia were to launch an attack on Estonia proper. And if Russia deems those countries that have sent troops in there to be enemy combatants in that situation, then it's not like Russia is attacking these countries unprovoked. They sent their troops into an active war zone and started attacking Russian forces on the ground. So, as you can see, this is very complex, and nobody really knows what happens next. All we know is that this is a very dangerous situation. We just saw France and the UK enter into a joint nuclear defense pact for all of Europe. And I think that's kind of what we're setting up for, is in order to protect Estonia and Poland from direct attack in retaliation for sending troops into Ukraine. That's why the UK and France are entering into this nuclear pact to basically protect Estonia and these other border countries from retaliation. And they're going to basically say that, if you attack these other countries, we will utilize our nuclear arsenal against Russia. We will be in a nuclear war. Now, will that really go the way that they're hoping it will? I don't know. Russia may not like the idea of trying to be these little chihuahuas trying to attack the bear. The bear may just swipe the little chihuahuas with its paw, and they just may not know what hit them. They have been fighting in the shadow of the United States, basically trying to be United States' wingman. Does Europe really have a cohesive military that can actually stand up to a major threat like Russia? And the answer, I think, is nobody really knows. There's a lot of evidence to show that they do not have a standalone military army, that they have to be built and embedded into U.S. military units in order to really have war-fighting potential. Unless they're going up against some third world country like Mali or something like that, they can go knock over Burkina Faso or Djibouti maybe, but they can't really knock over Russia or threaten Russia in a credible way. All right, friends, let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. I wanted to get this out to you as quickly as possible. Let me know what you think happens next or what's happening as it goes. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up there. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report out.